Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to LaBelle Edwards Stadium in Provo. What a scene that was. What a scene it still kind of is behind me. As I sit here, BYU wins the Holy War 24-21. By the way, if you haven't heard, over the Utah Utes, we're going to have to talk about is BYU rather the best team in the Big 12 now, because Texas Tech lost earlier today in a erratic performance, a wild ending against Arizona State, and now BYU sits here as the unbeaten, the team that is 7-0 right now in the Big 12, obviously unbeaten in the conference. They have beaten Utah 3 straight times, and BYU really took it to Utah in the fourth quarter. It was another fourth quarter meltdown for the Utes that, honestly, we were having a conversation on Press Row, was kind of reminiscent of what happened to them against the aforementioned Texas Tech Red Raiders earlier this year. So I'm excited to talk about all of this with you guys. Let me know, by the way, if the audio sounds okay. I've got my mic a little bit lower this time, trying to make it all work. But shout out to everybody at BYU, man. I appreciate the sports info staff here so much for getting me set up and letting me pop into a booth here to do the live show after the game. So I think we'll all appreciate that, right? Everybody going to appreciate having some fun recapping this one and everything that happened. I think it'll be great. Shout out to the Utah sports info staff as well. I had a good chat with them in Salt Lake on my way into town. So it's been a wonderful experience here, but you guys don't care about that nearly as much as you do about this game. Man, I mean, maybe we should start with that fourth quarter, right? Because to me, I'm thinking, and I tweeted actually at one point, BYU didn't take enough advantage of the over-aggressiveness of Kyle Whittingham early in the game and just general sloppiness from Utah throughout. And that this is when Utah scored the go-ahead touchdown to start the fourth quarter, right? I'm sitting there thinking, man, you could feel that Utah had a touchdown in the bag, like it was going to come. And I kept thinking it's been 10-7 for too long. The sequence at the end of the first half was obviously very weird. I'm not sure what you're doing calling a running play from the 9-yard line without a timeout. And I just thought, I don't know if BYU has taken enough advantage of this lull from Utah. And the second that BYU got pushed like backs against the wall, man, that team led by a true freshman quarterback just responded as well as you possibly could. And it goes touchdown, interception, touchdown, and the game's over. I mean, just an unbelievable response. And Bear Bachmeier, I mean, we need to talk a ton about him. This feels like a real coming out party of sorts for him. I think a lot of people around the Big 12 knew, like, hey, this kid's going to be a problem. But now a lot of people across the nation were watching this game. There was a pretty big spotlight on this. And to do it against your arch rival, I mean, this is the type of game that's like it's a legend-making game as far as BYU spheres are concerned. To go out and do this against your rival, against Kyle Whittingham. On the other side, I already saw some of the chat a little frustrated about, the Devin Dampier love that there's been throughout the season as opposed to Bear Bachmeier and getting a chance to outplay him on a national stage. I mean, I'm sure that had to all feel great, but dude was just out there making legendary plays. I mean, man, you want to talk about like legendary highlights. I mean, Bear Bachmeier tonight hurdling a guy, like cleanly hurdling a guy. How often do you see the hurdle come through like completely clean like that? That play was insane, but that was obviously eclipsed by the touchdown run that he has to put the game on ice, to put BYU up by 10. That is like the stuff of legends, carrying half the Utah defense into the end zone on a play when, I'm going to be honest, when the ball was snapped, I started to like glance down at my computer for a second because I saw, well, he's going to pick up like 4 or 5 yards and that's going to be it. Thankfully, I didn't fully commit to the screen and looked up to see the rest of it because the creativity to work his way through there and then bulldoze his way all the way down to the goal line, like unbelievable stuff. And that kind of embodies like if you could take this BYU team and put it into one play, I mean, it feels like that's really what it is. That's a touchdown run that's going to be remembered for a long time around here, I'm sure, and probably should be just around the country too. I mean, that was an insane play from Bear Bachmeier, and obviously the play of the game. So the legend of Bear is definitely growing and growing quickly after what happened today against Utah. So, all right, I'm seeing a lot of people filing in here. We got a bunch of super chats to get to. Definitely hit me with all your thoughts about this one, guys. I'm here for it. Let's talk. We got a lot of things to talk about. Let's dive into a couple of super chats here. Thank you all for being here. Please like the video. and subscribe to the channel if you're new here, if you're just seeing this for the first time after this Holy War win for BYU. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I talk Big 12 football on this channel all week, every week, and subscriptions really help. So please do that. Like the video. You can also submit a super chat if you want to guarantee that you make it on here tonight. Let's see. Zach Clake, 7839. BYU, Bear has some guts. The narrative in the media, we're taking shots at Josh Pate here. Look, I like Josh Pate a lot. I think he's the best in the game, but the narrative in the media, cough Josh Pate, was that they'd trust Dampier over Bear late in the game. I think that's been soundly disproven. Go Cougs. I actually missed, I'm usually a pretty religious listener of Josh Pate. I missed his take on the Holy War this week, but I did see that he said I think he put on the Ramen Noodle Express, right? Utah to cover. That was a swing and a miss, and I can understand the logic some people might have had saying, hey, I'll trust a quarterback who's not a true freshman on this stage late in the game. And look, I was guilty of it a little bit too. On the short that I posted earlier, someone called me out on that I did pick Utah to win. And a part of it in the back of my mind was I thought, well, Bear Bachmeier has started to show a little bit of vulnerability over the last couple of weeks. He had 3 turnovers in the last 2 games coming into tonight, and I expected that we would see more. Now, he got a mulligan on the 1 interception that he threw because the holding call, you can say it affected the play. It affected a different route. It wasn't the one he threw. But outside of that, I mean, incredible poise, handled himself well. He was handling pressure well all night. Like, how many times did he have a blitzer right in his face on the snap, and he would spin out, and at worst, generally he was going to be able to get rid of the ball, pick up a couple yards, or at best, he was making some plays. He was finding Carson Ryan down the field. He was drawing a key targeting penalty, right? That was one of the times where he had a bunch of heat, and he somehow breaks and escapes the tackle and is able to extend the play. And then there goes one of Utah's best defenders picking up a targeting penalty, right? And that play is very emblematic of Bear Bachmeier himself because he is just tough as nails. I don't know that there's a tougher quarterback out there in the country except maybe Sam Levitt, the other guy who wins tonight that we need to talk a lot about. Both of those guys. I am in awe of how hard they play at all times. And I thought, man, like Bachmeier picking up a key first down and getting rid of a key Utah defender just because he had the effort in him to avoid a sack is like so emblematic of what he is as a quarterback. So anyway, yeah, Zach, talk your stuff, man. Talk your stuff. That's 100%. Bear Bachmeier absolutely ascended above Devin Dampier tonight. Like, you know, Dampier's, he makes some plays. Obviously, he can extend plays. He had a couple balls down the field that worked, but he can't really drop a dime on you down the field. And frankly, Utah's receivers don't get open enough. I mean, look, Utah has now used 4 defensive players on offense this year because they're throwing 2 passes to a defensive lineman tonight, right? Like, you're not doing that if you have enough skill talent on its own to make the offense work. And I think that's one observation I have about Utah is just like, hey, they need to get better at the skill positions on offense. And Dampier is not a guy that can go totally win you a game like that if you can take away enough of his running game. And let me go look at what was Dampier's final number tonight. 15 for 64. So yeah, I mean, like, that's fine. You know, he doesn't kill you. That was not, it's not like what happened last week against Arizona State, which is 10 for 120. And there's so much about this week we got to sort through, man, but try and make sense of, yeah, last week Dampier goes 10 for 120 and a touchdown running the ball against the Arizona State defense. And today, Will Hammond, who ran and threw all over the Utah defense in the fourth quarter a couple of weeks ago, he can't do anything. Until the final 5 minutes of the game, Tech's offense couldn't do anything the entire day. So, I mean, I don't know how you decipher all that other than to say college football, but on a stage with bright lights right next to each other, absolutely Bear Bachmeier outplayed Devin Dampier tonight. And Bachmeier is a true freshman. Like, look at the ceiling that is left on him. You know, I mean, he's got more in that arm. I think he's just got more of like that it factor. Bear Bachmeier just has an it factor to him. He's got moxie. He's got the stuff that you need to go make plays in big moments. And we've seen some of that mixed in with a little sloppiness the last few weeks, but we saw near perfect performance in terms of just not making negative plays to hurt the team, and he rose up and made huge plays when they absolutely needed it. So I think it's a great topic, Zach. I could gush all night here about Bear Bachmeier and the future that I think is coming for him. Guy from Utah, if I'm missing something from you, try and hit me up in the chat. I'm not going to lie, it's a little tougher to look at the chat tonight based on where my computer's positioned. But if I'm missing a comment that you have there, let me know. I appreciate the support tonight. Guy from Utah, could be any of you. Matthew says your best backdrop of all time. I'm a little biased. I don't know. I think it's probably my best backdrop of all time. Only thing is I wish it were bright so that you could see the mountains, because I do. This will sound corny, but a couple times that I like look up early in the game and I'm just like, man, I'm like covering a football game and there's just this beautiful scene of the mountains in the background. Like, I love the mountains a lot. Got a chance to go do a little like mini kind of hike this morning, get some good pictures, spend some time outdoors. I love it. I'm jealous you guys get to live here. And Matthew, thank you for your support and for popping on. Ryan says this rivalry is top 5 nationally, period. Look, great showcase for it today. You know, Urban Meyer, I know you guys, many of my viewers, I'm sure, are BYU fans who would not perhaps be as fond of Urban Meyer, but Urban Meyer was giving it a lot of pub. You know, Dave Portnoy was giving it a lot of pub and a lot of run with Big Noon here. Everybody got to see it tonight. I saw a bunch of tweets from people who love the uniforms, which is another thing I was going to say. More of this college football. If you can just do blue, red, where they both pop, they both stand out. I mean, the crowd where you can see the red and the blue and the uniforms like that. You're playing on grass. The scene going from evening into night. You know, it's kind of like the Rose Bowl always wants the sunset in the game. This was like peak college football, man. It was awesome. The environment was great. Obviously, it was crazy loud. You know, I was not surprised this time, but when I came last year for the K-State game, I was a little bit surprised at how loud it was. Atmosphere, outstanding tonight. Once again, it was a great showcase for the rivalry for sure. Ryan, thank you for your support. Let's see. Dan says, Utes wearing Rose Bowl game shirts. I hope they treasure this loss as much as they love those 2 losses. All right, that's some good smack talk, Dan. That's some good smack talk. Might need to go watch the Rose Bowl season highlights after this one tonight. 3 straight losses now to BYU, man. 3 straight losses, and you wonder about Kyle Whittingham. You know, I had a great conversation with Dick Harmon before the game that you guys saw here on the channel. And he was kind of talking about that, you know, would Whittingham want to stick around to have a better ending in this rivalry because it means so much to him? Well, this is not the type of ending that you would want, man. Because not only was it, you know what, I'm going to expand on this for a minute. So, Dan, I appreciate this. I'm going to jump off and talk about Utah a little bit here, because that was the thing. It was like so much of this game was not like what I expect of a Utah team. It's not just that Devin Dampier is not quite a good enough quarterback to go win big time games like this, at least with this team, with the skill talent that Utah has. But it's also that they 12 penalties, man, 12 penalties for 77 yards. They have a couple of turnovers, bad interception by Devin Dampier trying to get the ball down the field, a muffed punt. You know, I mean, that's the sloppier part, a muffed punt. And that felt like it came at a huge point in the game, right? It's 7-7, BYU and Utah are now tied. Utah has the momentum. There's still plenty of time on the clock to drive down and get a score before half. Then you muff a punt. That's a 3 to 10 point swing, depending on what Utah was going to do on that drive. And I mean, the way it worked out, they were lucky it wasn't more, because again, that was probably the worst moment of the night for BYU. I don't understand what you're doing game management wise, calling the run play from the 9-yard line and then spiking it and whatever that was, right? So it could have been worse, but still, that's a huge moment for Utah. And there were just so many of those throughout the game. You have one of your best defensive players picking up a crucial targeting penalty that knocks him out of the game. See, I had a list of all this. The holding penalty, right? Defensive holding wipes out an interception. When Bear Bachmeier did make like his one mistake, he gave you one where he threw it too late. You know, the receiver was open. You could see it unfolding. He was just a tick too late, and the ball gets picked, but there's a holding penalty. Kyle Whittingham himself contributed to this cause, I would say, by not taking some chip shot field goals. And I get it. the kicking situation is not the greatest in the world. He clearly does not trust his kicking situation right now. But man, you had one of them would have been a 26-yard field goal. One of them would have been a 30-yard field goal. The 46-yard field goal, I understand why you pass up on that after you, which ironically is the one that he actually lined up to try to kick first. But when you see that hook, shank, whatever you want to call it, I mean, it wasn't even close. When you see that, I get how you'd be like, all right, let's just roll back out there and try and pick up 7 yards. I do sort of understand that. But man, if you take your chip shots, this is way oversimplifying it because butterfly effect, the game would change a lot, but it's a 3-point game. You lost by 3 and you passed up 2 very easy chip shot field goals. So I didn't love a lot of the decision-making there from Whittingham. And at the end of the day, it's sloppy and you just wilted in the fourth quarter. And like, that is not what I think of when I think of a Utah team. This year, when Utah has been in a game where it's close and where they're getting pushed, they have played horrible in the fourth quarter. I guess maybe I'm trying to remember what the Wyoming game was going into the fourth, because I know they had a sluggish first half. But for all intents and purposes, the only 2 times that Utah has really had somebody on their tail in a knockdown, drag-out sort of game in the fourth quarter, it was Texas Tech and it was BYU. And in each instance, they score early in the quarter to take the lead and then just get whitewashed, and it was Kyle Whittingham admitted as much after the Texas Tech game that they basically wore down, right? They were getting beat at the line of scrimmage. Here, they have all the momentum in the world. They get the big score, and that was a heck of a drive, man. I got to go back and look at my notes on that drive. You have the 16-yard run. I think that was the Wildcat package. It was a Bird Ficklin 16-yard run, which was a crazy carry where he pushes forward for the first down. And then you get Daniel Bray, 49 yards. And it's like, okay, BYU didn't take enough advantage. They've got all the momentum. And nope, here comes a true freshman quarterback just calmly leading a touchdown drive down the field. Parker Kingston making a big play, just exploding. That guy, I'm always amazed by how fast he can hit a little hole, and just to watch it unfold from up top in the press box, it's a thing of beauty. And then there's Devin Dampier with an interception. And here comes Bear Bachmeier again with a superhuman centaur touchdown run that will be remembered forever. So I don't, if you take the fourth quarters, what was the stat? It was 38. I think before the last Utah touchdown, I'll tell you for sure here. Before the last Utah touchdown, I think it was 38-14 that they had been outscored in the fourth quarter of both of those games against Texas Tech and now BYU. So that just is not what I expect from Utah, man. I mean, say what you will about them. We take our shots. They hadn't won a Big 12 home game until beating Arizona State last week. But that's been an excellent program, and a program based on like toughness and beating you up at the line of scrimmage. And that's just not the way you would expect it to go. You would not expect them to be the ones wilting in the fourth quarter. And that's exactly what happened today. So good topic there. Let's see. Was that was Dan that brought that up. Let's say hello to JPAP. And by the way, tons more people in here since the last time I looked. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I talk college football from a Big 12 perspective all week here on the channel. So you're going to get a lot more of this. I'll do a live show when I get back tomorrow night as well, after I've had some more time to digest all of this. So please subscribe to the channel, like the video, subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. I've got a free Big 12 newsletter, 5,300 plus Big 12 fans subscribe. You can subscribe at ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com to subscribe to that. And join the club, man. Twice a week for free to your inbox. That would be great as well. Utah and BYU can get along once Tech beats BYU too. Okay, there you go. Well, BYU is going to have to earn it, right? I mean, that's a big part of this conversation. BYU has legitimate claim now to saying, hey, why not consider us the best team in the Big 12, being that we are undefeated. Texas Tech is no longer undefeated, right? Texas Tech, I mean, did not look good at all today. Baron Morton's health is still a concern. Even if he's going to be back, I know they play Oklahoma State next. They should be fine. But even if he's back after that game, it's like Baron Morton's already had 3 injuries this year, so his durability remains a big concern. And Will Hammond might be my worst take that I've had all season, that Will Hammond is the guy and they need to just go all in on him. Fooled by 8 minutes of football against Utah, which was very foolish of me. I will totally admit that. But yeah, the way Tech, it's not just the Tech loss, but like they looked very vulnerable today. They're getting more beat up. Their tight end, well, I'm blanking on the tight end's name. He was hurt today. Obviously, Skylar Gill-Howard is now out for possibly the year, could come back for the playoff. And then you still got the Baron Morton stuff going on. Tech's starting to get beat up, right? They're running into some of the same stuff, sort of like Iowa State is, where Iowa State's begun to look like a shell of itself because injuries are mounting. So BYU is going to have to earn it, but they're in that conversation. Absolutely, absolutely for sure. J-Pap, thank you. Payson Cougar fan, I thought of you when I was driving in here from Salt Lake down to, I was actually staying, well, I don't know if I'm like technically in Orem. I had dinner in Orem last night. Anyway, I get it all confused, right? But I saw Payson on the signs as I was driving in. I can't remember how far it was away, 15, 20 miles or whatever. And I thought, oh, Payson Cougar fan. Go Cougars. You fans are still less than pleasant. Yeah, hey, if anyone has stories of their fan experience from the game today, I'm definitely here for learning a little bit about that. Let me know for sure. Guy from Utah says, I'm a BYU fan, and a lot of people are saying Utah is overrated. Utah is not overrated. They are a great team. BYU beat them. Yeah, I mean, that's always the conversation. I feel like that's guy from Utah. Thank you, by the way, for your support. I feel like a lot of that is the just conversation for the Big 12, right? As soon as a Big 12 team loses, then it's, oh, yeah, the league's not that great. They're just all beating each other up. And, I mean, it would serve the league well if one team would go do it, and BYU is now the last hope to be the team to, like, roll through unbeaten. I mean, kind of like last year, BYU wound up being the last hope, starting 9-0, right? Now they're here 7-0. Weight of the world's on your shoulders now, BYU. But that's like Texas Tech had kind of developed, and I feel like they had some real legitimacy there where people were saying, hey, this is a team now that we can kind of believe in, and they're ranked number 4 in the S&P Plus. Like, people were coming around on the idea of Texas Tech, and then the second that happens, there it goes. And look, Tech fans, I'll save most of this for tomorrow, okay? But, boy, the online Tech fans got a little bit out over their skis this week with the anger from Tortilla Gate, injecting that into where we're going to be in the SEC to we just lost to Arizona State. It's a tale as old as time about letting your pride and ego get the best of you. And I feel like we had a prime example of that this week where Texas Tech went over the course of like a month and a half from being typical, hey, Texas Tech chip on your shoulder like the rest of the Big 12, we love you, to the cycle into, oh, arrogant, we're going to act just like Texas, who we hated for years for acting like this, to, oh, wait, we got humbled. Now here we are. I'll save some of that conversation for tomorrow, Texas Tech fans. But that was tough, huh? It was a little bit tough. Anyway, yeah, let's get to the bigger picture conversation, I suppose, on BYU. Well, let me check the notes here to see if there was anything else. I mean, I think that's most of it. I wonder a little bit now about, I've seen some of the conversation about what does Kyle Whittingham do now, because clearly this game is so important to him. He decided to stick around at least for this year. Does this encourage him now to stick around longer, not wanting to go out on this note in the Holy War? You know, we'll see. I would be very interested to know what's rattling around in his brain about this right now. But I guess to the point that was just brought up right before this, I don't think Utah is a bad team. I don't think they're a great team. I think they're very much in line with a lot of what this league is, you know, and that's a part of what is going to branch into this conversation. Hey, does BYU have legitimate claim to lay now to being the best team in the Big 12? They have as good an argument as anybody, absolutely. And a part of that is because, yeah, again, even when we started to think there was a dominant team in the league in Texas Tech, beating everybody by 24 plus, all of a sudden they proved to be mere mortals to a team that, again, try and wrap your mind around this. Utah just beat Arizona State by 32 last week. And yes, Sam Leavitt did not play, but the Utah offense that you just saw get pretty stymied out there. That offense scored touchdowns on basically 6 of its 7 real possessions in the game, like outside of a possession that ended the game. 6 of 7 possessions, they scored touchdowns. Okay? They did that to Arizona State. That was the Arizona State defense that had nothing really to do with Sam Leavitt. Okay? And then you see the role reversal today with what happens there. So I don't think – I still think Utah is a pretty good team because I saw what they did to Arizona State, and that was really eye-opening. They have just bulldozed some teams. But the problem for Utah is they're kind of one-dimensional. And if they can't just beat you on the ground, they don't have enough through the air. I won't even put it all on Devin Dampier, who, by the way, was 20 of 36 for 244, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception tonight. It's not all on Dampier because they've just got to get better skill position players. Nobody was getting open. I mean, from the press box, that's one of the things that you can really see very well. Nobody was getting open for him consistently at all. And some of the bigger plays that he had were just, hey, I've got to throw, it's got to be back shoulder. I just got to lob the ball up and see if my guy can make a play. That's where a lot of that was coming in. And he padded his stats a little bit. Maybe it's not fair to say padded his stats, but that last drive obviously added something to his statistics where that 244 number doesn't look so bad. They're just not effective enough through the air. They're very limited in like game script, how it can go. Once you get behind by 2 scores, that's just not a game that Utah is really going to come back and win, especially against a good team like BYU. So they're one-dimensional. They're very flawed. And that's what we're finding out about all these Big 12 teams. They are very flawed, can be very susceptible to injuries. You know, I mean, Arizona State saw what happened to them without Sam Leavitt. Everybody is so flawed that it makes for this jumbled up mess of like, what do we actually have here? Okay. Because to cap this off, look, BYU, I mean, I will just tell you, like, they're going to be number 1 in my power rankings for the next week. I think that's only fair at this point. But would I still sit here and say, like, I trust this team to get to 9-0, 10-0 with, and again, take this with the caveat of what the schedule is that's coming up? Like, no, because I've seen it happen to everybody else in the league so far. I've seen it happen to everybody else, I guess, other than Cincinnati. They get tripped up once you start going through the meat of this schedule. Everybody's flawed enough that you play enough of these teams that are in this top category of everybody who's just good to maybe very good. There's just, everybody's too close together. And teams wind up stumbling, even when you think they've got it figured out. So I would not predict it, but for right now, yeah, I think they absolutely should be able to lay claim to, like, we're number 1 in the power rankings. Hasn't always been totally pretty, but style points don't matter here because everybody is losing. You look at this, BYU's 4-0, Cincy's 4-0 in the league. Then you've got Arizona State, Texas Tech, and Houston at 3-1. And look, I did a little video. Not many of you watched it. I get it. The games are going on. I did a little video on Houston earlier today. I know Houston fans are going to be screaming at me like, dude, here you go again, not talking enough about us. I know some of this is like eye test, and like, you almost did blow it against an Arizona team today that I just think is okay. But you won, and I literally just said style points don't matter. So we'll ascend Houston into this conversation. They'll get a chance to prove it themselves too. Houston's upcoming schedule. Look, they go to Arizona State next week. Go win at Arizona State next week, Houston. You'll totally shut me up, and we may be changing the narrative from there. But I told everybody, you got to talk to your kids about a 9-win Houston because they still have West Virginia and UCF on the schedule. If they win both of those games, that's 8. And then at Arizona State, that's tough, but you're at Baylor, you got TCU at home. I mean, those teams are flawed enough. You could absolutely win one of those games. Like, I see a real path to potentially 9 wins there for Houston. I think that would be just short of Big 12 championship game appearance territory, but they're in the mix. And once you get past 3-1, man, I mean, it's Iowa State, TCU, Baylor, K-State, Utah, Kansas, all sitting there at 2-2. So all still alive because the way this season has gone, like, I think you're going to have a team in the Big 12 championship game with 2 conference losses. You'll be dealing with a lot of tiebreakers. It's probably going to get wonky as far as that is concerned, but I could still make a case for any one of those teams. Maybe if one starts to get a little bit healthier or they just get hot or their schedule softens up. I mean, there are a million different ways this could go. but I could still definitely see one of those 2-2 teams coming out of that pack and figuring it out. But, man, crazy day. I mean, shout out to Arizona State. I'll talk more about Arizona State, Texas Tech tomorrow. But for pulling out a game, I talked about BYU with like the toughness, mental fortitude, moxie to win a game when you had kind of won it and then lost it. It was a little more pronounced with Arizona State where, I mean, for 52 minutes of that game, they were the aggressor. They were in control, not just like on the scoreboard the entire time, but just game feel. I mean, they had Texas Tech's offense completely stymied. Will Hammond looked so frustrated every time he went to the sideline after another series that didn't work. In the first half, 6 of the 7 Texas Tech drives were either punt or downs. I mean, Tech had no hope of doing anything offensively for most of that game until Texas Tech's special teams woke up and gave them a big punt return that sets up a score. And then you get a massive kick return that sets up a score, right? So complimentary football, I guess, say what you will about it, but Tech got enough of a spark. And in the span of 5 minutes, it goes from Arizona State having that game in a chokehold, complete chokehold, vice grip on that thing, to then you just throw it all away. You've lost it. You're down by 3. And then Arizona State with a hobbled Jordan Tyson, who after every big catch or every big play is coming up, pulling his hamstring, like holding his hamstring. He's clearly dealing with some kind of soft tissue injury going on. He still just makes plays. They drive down the field. Oh, here's a 4th and 2. Then it feels like I was like, man, this feels like it may be over. Nope, here's Sam Levitt, the only guy in the conference other than maybe Brendan Sorsby, who plays as hard as Bear Bachmeier, runs out, flips it, 4th and 2, boom. There's like 35 yards. We're in business again. And it's Jordan Tyson making a play. Well, he's gimpy. Jordan Tyson recovering a crucial fumble as Arizona State is about to score. Obviously, the bounces went Arizona State's way. They fumbled 3 times and recovered all of them. They kind of had the mojo, the luck for the most part, but they also had to go re-win the game after completely losing it. And that tells you a lot about who that team is. But, teams take on the personality of their leader. Teams take on the personality of their head coach and their quarterback. And Kenny Dillingham might not always be everybody's style or cup of tea, but he is a very intense guy who talked a lot after the game about how they weren't physical enough in practice the last couple of weeks. He changed that. They got back to being more physical and they played a lot better. He's a tone setter. Trying to remember who it was in the post. I don't think it was Jordan Tyson. I forget who the other guy was that was doing post game for Arizona State, but they asked what changed this week. And he pointed at Kenny Dillingham and said, like him, he made practice tougher. And then Sam Levitt, just runs around and plays so damn hard, man. I love watching him play so much because, again, it's not always pretty, much like the Bear Bachmeier thing, but he's always finding a way to make a play because he just hustles. He just hustles. He's utilizing so much energy and effort at all times, and I think like every school across the league should want their quarterback to play that hard. And it's amazing what happens when you do that. Levitt has kept this thing on the rails enough. I mean, they have 2 losses. They don't have much margin for error, but they've only got 1 loss in conference play. So ASU marches forward, and they are still the defending champs until further notice. So, I peek down to the chat. I see the question, who is number 1? I mean, right now, I would give BYU the edge as being number 1 in the Big 12, but that is obviously very subject to change. I still think Texas Tech has the highest ceiling. I would still say Arizona State probably has the 2nd highest ceiling, but let's see is Jordan Tyson going to be able to play? I mean, let's see what happens. You could lose to Houston if you're down your superstar stud at receiver because Arizona State's offense is kind of built on like Levitt to Tyson. That's really what they have. So, okay, let's see. What am I missing here? I saw a guy from Utah. We got through that. JPAP, what's up, JPAP 967? People counting Tech out after 1 loss without QB1 is crazy. Well, I hope that's not directed at me because, like I said, I'm certainly not counting them out. The problem is, from a national narrative standpoint, the Big 12 will suffer because of this. It will really hurt. People just were starting to develop some trust in Tech, and then they go play a pretty poor game and lose. And so it'll take a lot to recover from that. And if you're talking about like a bid for chances for 2 bids for the Big 12. If you're talking about seeding in the college football playoff, all that stuff, that definitely hurts. But if you're talking about what are Texas Tech's chances of winning the Big 12 or making the college football playoff, no, I mean, absolutely, they're still in it for that, 100%. Yeah, you don't need to worry too much about counting. I am not counting them out right now. That would be very foolish. But they need Baron Morton. I mean, that is like, again, I will dunk on my old take from earlier. Joey McGuire knows more about football than Joey McGuire has forgotten more about football than I will ever know. Okay. And that's why he kept Baron Morton in as quarterback. It is very clear. He is definitely the more stable, steady hand at quarterback, even if Will Hammond may have more talent. But like, yeah, right now it is not consistent enough at all, especially as I think teams have now been able to game plan for him instead of Utah having to just deal with him on the fly. They need Baron Morton. If Baron Morton stays healthy, always the if story of his career, but if he stays healthy, no doubt they could still win playoff games. I mean, I still believe all that. I know last week I just did the storyline like, hey, based on what we're seeing in SP Plus, like they could legit win a national championship. Maybe I would back off that statement a little bit, especially with like the Gil Howard news, because you're going to need to be really good on the line if you're going to go win playoff games. And he might be back for the playoff. I guess that was a part of the reporting today. I might not quite be as bullish on that with Texas Tech as I was earlier this week, but they could definitely still go. They could definitely still win a playoff game or two. I'm not selling all my stock in Texas Tech right now, but that was definitely a learning experience and a humbling week for the fan base. I think after everything that we saw happen this week. JPAP, what's up, JPAP? JPAP said Tech could have had like 5 turnovers on ASU. Just unlucky. Yeah, also fair. Like I mentioned, Arizona State fumbled the ball 3 times, recovered all 3 of them. So, sometimes the ball bounces your way. That's the way it goes. But like, if you're going on the road, the bottom line, like Tech's just got to be better offensively. That defense is going to keep them in games, and it did, but you just got to be better offensively, period. The Will Hammond offense has to be more effective than it was. And that was the biggest key. Arizona State's defense, after they got it shoved down their throats by a quarterback run game last week in Devin Dampier, I still have those stats up. They held Will Hammond, and it was better until the final. They held Will Hammond to 3.1 yards per carry, 15 rushes for 47 yards. That's how you do it, man. I thought this actually might be a bad thing for ASU that Will Hammond's going to play quarterback because Tech will just run him as opposed to you wouldn't do that with Baron Morton. But no, Arizona State stepped up. And they got it done. Guy from Utah, is Cincinnati or Iowa State a bigger threat to BYU? That's a good question. It's a good question. Are those games both on the road, if I'm recalling correctly? They are, yeah. So at Iowa State is coming up next week. At Cincinnati is later in November. Which one's a bigger threat? Very good question. If it were flipped and like Iowa State were later in the year and maybe had a chance to get a bit healthier, although, the corners aren't coming back. Iowa State is going to be coming off of a bye in that game next week. I would still look, this is a bit unfair. I mean, I will admit, Cincinnati fans, I'll just level with you here. Some of this absolutely is logo on the helmet. I've just seen more with Matt Campbell and trust that a little bit more than Scott Satterfield here. But if I were just going by what my eyeballs have seen over the last month of the season, it should be Cincinnati. If I'm going to judge this sort of like people have their, computer rankings, right? And the computer rankings will take in not just performance this year, but recruiting and results over the last 5-10 years or whatever. If you're going to do it like that, and I'm going to operate like that and take into account some of the back story of what I've seen even before just this year, you can agree or disagree with that. I would lean toward Iowa State still being the tougher one, especially because here's the other thing with Iowa State as I'm thinking about it. You got to go play that game off of this one, right? This was a massive win. Now you got to go play. You got to go get your mind right and get ready to go play that game in Ames next week, which tough place to play. That'll be a raucous crowd. They know what's on the line for them. They still have a shot at the Big 12 championship, but they have zero margin for error. That place is going to be, it's about the same size as here. It'll be filled up and loud, and they're going to be pumped for the opportunity for that game. So I feel like Iowa State is the answer there. Cincy fans, if you want to get mad at me, I think that's totally fair. I wouldn't even fight you back too much on that. Okay. I think that's going to kind of wrap it up here, guys. Like I said, I'm flying back tomorrow morning, so I should be back home as long as nothing happens with the flights. I should be back home in time to do a live show tomorrow. We'll take this in a little bit more detail, have some more thoughts here. So if you didn't get your question or comment or whatever in tonight, there is always tomorrow. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. All that really helps. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter if you like what you hear here. ofbnews.com, or click the link in the description of the video, ofbnews.com, to get subscribed to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. But once again, greatly appreciate all of you guys being here. Had an awesome weekend in Salt Lake and Provo. Shout out to the Utah and BYU sports info staffs for being so helpful and accommodating. Just everybody, those of you that came up and said hi to me, whether it was out in the parking lot or at Tucano's. Am I saying the name of that right? The Brazilian steakhouse that I was at last night. Had a couple people say hi to me there too. Everybody unbelievably friendly here. So I've had a wonderful experience. As always, can't wait to be back. And hope you guys have a great evening. And I will talk to you very soon. Take care.